The old house stood on a hill. It was shrouded in mist. Emma parked the car. Her breath caught in her throat. A shiver ran down her spine. The house loomed. It was watching, waiting. The air was heavy. It smelled of damp earth and decay. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the rustling leaves. Emma stepped out of the car. Her footsteps echoed in the stillness. She walked towards the house. Her heart pounded in her chest. The door creaked open, its sound echoing through the silent night. Emma hesitated for a moment, her hand trembling on the doorknob. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. It revealed a darkened hallway, the walls lined with faded wallpaper peeling at the edges. The flickering candlelight cast eerie shadows that danced on the walls, creating an unsettling atmosphere. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight that filtered through a cracked window. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and decay, a testament to the house's long abandonment. Emma stepped inside. The floorboards groaned beneath her weight, each step she took echoing through the empty house. She could feel the history of the place, as if the walls themselves whispered secrets of the past. She felt a presence, cold and unseen. It was as if the very air around her was alive, watching her every move. She glanced over her shoulder, but there was nothing there. It sent shivers down her spine. The air grew colder, her breath visible in the dim light. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to ward off the chill that seemed to seep into her very bones. A whisper brushed her ear. "Turn back," it hissed. The voice was faint, almost indistinguishable from the creaking of the house, but it was there. She spun around, her heart pounding in her chest. Emma froze. Her heart raced. She turned. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but the feeling of being watched persisted. She took a deep breath and forced herself to move forward. The hairs on her arms stood on end. She continued down the hallway, each step filled with a growing sense of dread. The walls seemed to close in on her, the shadows growing darker and more oppressive. Each step filled her with dread. She reached the end of the hall where a large ornate mirror hung on the wall. It was old and tarnished, its surface covered in a thin layer of dust. A large ornate mirror hung on the wall. It was old and tarnished. Emma hesitated before it, her reflection barely visible in the dim light. She felt a chill run down her spine as she stared into the mirror. As she passed, she caught a glimpse of a figure, standing behind her. She spun around, but the hallway was empty. Her heart raced as she turned back to the mirror, but the figure was gone. Emma whirled around, her breath catching in her throat. The dim light cast eerie shadows on the walls, making her heart race. She strained her ears, listening for any sound, any hint of movement. There was no one there. The silence was deafening, pressing in on her from all sides. She took a hesitant step forward, her eyes darting to every dark corner. "Just your imagination," she whispered. Her voice trembled, betraying the fear she tried to suppress. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following her every move. She continued exploring. Each room was filled with shadows, each one more menacing than the last. The air was thick with tension, making it hard to breathe. They seemed to writhe like living things. The shadows danced and twisted, creating grotesque shapes that played tricks on her mind. A book lay open on a dusty table, its pages yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. It was a journal, bound in leather. The cover was worn, the edges frayed from years of use. She picked it up. The pages were filled with frantic scribblings, words and symbols that made no sense, yet filled her with a sense of dread. The shadows, they whisper, they watch. The words sent chills down her spine. She could almost hear the whispers, feel the eyes on her. Emma's blood ran cold. The shadows in the room seemed to deepen, growing darker and more oppressive. She felt trapped, unable to escape their grasp. The temperature plummeted. Emma felt a presence behind her. The air grew colder, her breath visible in the frigid air, close, menacing. She turned slowly. Her heart pounded in her ears. The room seemed to close in on her, the shadows pressing closer, suffocating her with their presence. A towering shadow loomed over her. Its eyes glowed an eerie red. Emma gasped. She stumbled back in terror. The shadow reached for her. Its touch sent chills down her spine. It spoke. Its voice was a guttural growl. "You are mine now," Emma screamed. She ran. The shadow glided effortlessly behind her. It fed on her fear, growing stronger with every terrified breath. She fled through the house. The shadows reached out to her. Their touch sent shivers down her spine. She had to escape. Emma raced towards the front door, her only escape. She fumbled with the handle. It wouldn't budge. The door was locked. She was trapped. Terror surged through her. She was at its mercy. Emma spun around. She searched for a weapon, anything, but the shadows had closed in. They surrounded her. Their whispers filled her ears. They spoke of her doom. She was paralyzed with fear, unable to move, unable to scream. The shadows pressed closer. Their touch sent waves of terror through her. She closed her eyes, waiting for the inevitable. A voice echoed in her mind. The attic. The mirror. It was faint, but it offered a glimmer of hope. Emma opened her eyes. She saw a flicker of light coming from a trapdoor in the ceiling. She knew what she had to do. Emma scrambled to her feet. She climbed the rickety ladder. The shadows swirled around her, trying to drag her back. She reached the attic. The mirror shimmered in the moonlight. It called to her, promising safety. Emma stepped towards it. Her hand reached out. The mirror rippled, sending waves of unease through the room. It was as if the very fabric of reality was being disturbed. It revealed a dark and twisted reflection, one that seemed to mock the very essence of humanity. The image was not just a mere distortion, it was a glimpse into another realm. Emma stared into her own terrified eyes, her breath quickening as she tried to comprehend the horror before her. She felt an icy chill run down her spine, but they weren't her eyes. They were foreign, filled with a malevolent intelligence that seemed to pierce through her very soul. They were the eyes of the Watcher. Fear turned to acceptance as she realized there was no escape. The Watcher had chosen her. She belonged to the shadows now. The shadows embraced her, wrapping around her like a cold, suffocating blanket. She felt herself being pulled into their dark embrace. They pulled her into the mirror, their grip unyielding. She struggled, but it was futile. The mirror was a portal, and she was being drawn into its depths. Her screams were swallowed by the darkness. The house stood silent, as if it had witnessed this many times before. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding. The shadows retreated, waiting for their next victim. They lingered in the corners, ever watchful, ever patient. The house was their domain. The Ashwood House still stands, shrouded in mist and shadow. It is a place where the boundaries between worlds blur, where the past and present collide. It waits for those brave enough to enter, to face their deepest fears. The path to the house is shrouded in mist, a journey into the unknown. Will you answer its call? The door stands open, an invitation to those who dare to uncover the secrets within. The choice is yours.